what is really going on in the brains of people who are seeking revenge? Why do we obsess over revenge? And is it healthy? Well, clinical psychologist Dr. Dathan Paterno joins us now to tell us how to handle our revenge obsession. Dr. Paterno, welcome to Smart Life.
Thanks. Good to see you, Gina.
Good to have you. Now tell me, what is it about us, about maybe some people who focus more on revenge than other people? Because I certainly know, like, my husband's one of these people, people that bug him are cones in his road. You know, he's just the little orange cones. He's just driving around. He could care less. But me, I'm like, that is unjust. They shouldn't have done that. I need to tell them. I need to hurt them. So
Sure.
what is the difference between those two brains?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately what it boils down to is a faith or lack of faith that justice will be done and can be done. I think when people in general, and especially children, trust that justice is going to be done, then they don't need or they don't feel the need to seek vengeance. I
Mhm.
mean, ultimately, there are three responses to being wronged. One of them is mercy or grace, the second is justice, and the third is vengeance. And what we really want is mercy or justice. But in a culture where we don't have those, then we feel like we have to be vigilantes, which is why we love those kind of characters that get vengeance for us. So it kind of stirs up our negativity and our intensity about it. But ultimately, what we want is justice.
It just seems like some people never leave junior high, and those people cause problems for everyone around them all their lives. And sometimes it's just so frustrating that you almost feel like you need to spare the world having to experience this person's injustice again. And so it seems like revenge is the only answer. And it always reminds me, I call it playground politics, called it that in our book, ladies and gentlemen. It always reminds me of the bully on the playground.
Hmm.
And the way that sometimes you just got to punch the guy in the face. The
Hmm.
hard thing is when to know.
Right. Well, I think with safety issues, there's something to be said for protecting yourself. I mean, I've taught all of my children that if they're in danger, that they have every right to attack back to make sure that they're safe. But they're not allowed to go seek vengeance. If they're not in any danger, they can't just run to the bully after school and pummel them. That's not acceptable. They need to trust that the proper authorities will do their job. Again, it goes back to the fact that many authorities are not doing the job. They're
Yes.
not getting justice for people. And so that's why people feel the need to take care of it themselves. I think currently in our culture, we don't have a very good justice department. We don't see justice being done fairly, equitably among all the people. And so we feel like we have to take care of it. And we're not as equipped. Frankly, we're not supposed to be deputized for that.
Yeah, because these injustices that people, and we all experience them, all of us do, all of us will in our lives, whether it's just somebody saying something unkind about us. They exist in the micro level, but they exist also in the macro level, where you mentioned the Department of Justice not doing its job. For example, the whole situation in Benghazi. No one really following up on that. Those kinds of things keep me awake at night, and they motivate and inform my passion in politics. But when you really don't have a hands-on control in the situation, like it is a national situation or even an international situation, what Putin is doing right now, for
Mhm.
example, how can we healthily, if that's a word, psychologically process those sorts of injustices where we really don't have a direct impact? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Yeah.
Well, yeah, a couple things I'd say about that. Number one is that we know that vengeance is not ours. We do trust that even though humans are not taking care of justice appropriately now, that God will eventually. And so the ultimate justice will be paid. God will do his thing and get justice for himself and all people. So we know that that's going to come eventually. So we have to be patient and trusting in him. But at the same time, we can't control the global. What we
Mm.
can control is our small environment, such as our family, right? So, what I teach people is that you can't control the world, control your own little world, your own little sphere of domination, so to speak. And if you and your spouse can be gracious and just with each other, then your children will grow up seeing that and they'll be able to better balance. Not seeking vengeance, knowing that mom and dad are going to take care of justice and oftentimes be merciful. And then you can help it at least with your own family.
Exactly, exactly. When we are, let's say, confronting something in our profession, and somebody has done something completely wrong, give us the what happens psychologically, the process. First, we're wronged, and then tell us about the psychological process and how to go through that so that we have a healthy outcome ultimately.
Yeah. Well, there is the animal part of the brain that stimulates fear and anger and intensity because we have the fight or flight response, right?
Right.
And then there's the other part of our brain, the frontal lobes, that tells us, it's probably not a good idea to punch out everybody who wrongs us. And so we kind of quell that response. And then the ego says, well, what's going to be a good long term response? What's going to get me ultimately what I want within the social norms and according to what I believe?
Right.
And so then we kind of balance it out, but you have to take time in order to do that. So, one of the most important things that I talk to people about, children and adults, is that you need to take time to make your decisions because your initial instinct in making a decision when you're wrong is usually going to be the wrong instinct.
We
Okay.
just went we
So,
just went all Freud, didn't we? We just went Freudian right here.
yes,
But it
we
really
did.
is. If you do think of it in terms of your Psych 101 class, the id, the ego, and the super ego, it's your super ego that's going to say restraint, grace, so on and so forth. It's your id that's going to want to punch the person, and it's your ego that's going to work out the details, pretty much.
Right. Right. Papa Freud was right about a few things, and that's one of them. So,
I still
yeah.
don't know
So,
what that has to do with being sexual creatures at all times, but there you
right.
go. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Hmm.
So you were going
So,
to say something else, and I didn't mean to
yeah,
cut you off.
just after that, then you can make the best decision about long term. Is this really my job? Is this my sphere of sovereignty here? Or is it the Justice Department? Or is it the principal? Or is it God who's going to take care of this? And sometimes we have to remember vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It's not mine. It's not my job to right the world. My job is to obey and to love people and to use mercy when it's appropriate, to seek justice when it's appropriate, and to let God get the vengeance when it's his time.
Yeah, and then so for people who have a healthy outlook on revenge and who do something about it, because the answer is not do nothing, and I want to be really clear that that's not what we're saying, right?
Sure. Sure, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
because speak to that for just a moment, because I want to make sure no one goes away with the impression of the best answer is just do nothing and expect God to take care of all the details, because sometimes, especially when we're talking about injustice, that's not the right answer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we are empowered to get justice, and partly we do that through our government. And so we need to elect people who can take care of us like that. But in our own spheres, whether it's with our neighbors or with the school bullies, sometimes we have to stand up to them ourselves. Sometimes we have to work behind the scenes to take care of it. Sometimes we have to call the police. Sometimes we have to get an attorney. So we need to be really proactive about things. I'm not saying that seeking justice or being merciful means being really passive. I think you need to be very proactive and very energetic about these things because we need to tell the world that we're not going to tolerate injustice.
Right.
We're not
Turn
going to
turn the other
tolerate
cheek, but
abuse.
not until your brains fall out, right?
Right.
Dr. Paterno, thank you so much for being on the show. We always appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. We know the revenge is rarely ever as sweet as we think it's going to be, but one thing that does give us satisfaction is hearing great stories of revenge. And that is exactly what we're going to do next. Then we go to your calls, 888-650-8176, or you can send letters to me at the Money Biz Life page. So we're looking forward to hearing from you in that segment. Rev up those phone lines and those laptops and get in contact with producer Jason because he's lonely back there. Have more Smart Life coming at you. Stay tuned.